What comes to mind when you think of China? Perhaps crowded cities, uniform culture, ancient traditions? Today, we're diving deep into the top 10 misconceptions many Westerners have about modern China. As someone who's been studying and exploring this country for a while, I'm here to share insights that go beyond the headlines and give you a more nuanced perspective. You're watching China Stream, your gateway to China. Here, we uncover fascinating stories and insights about this extraordinary country. Let's dive in. So, let's challenge 10 preconceptions one by one and discover the complex reality of contemporary China. Misconception 1: China is uniform. If you think China is one massive, homogeneous society, you're in for a surprise. Picture this: 56 different ethnic groups, each with their own distinct traditions, languages and ways of life. It's like having dozens of different countries within one border. Take Yunnan province for instance. This single region is home to over 25 ethnic minorities, creating a cultural mosaic you will hardly find anywhere else. And the diversity doesn't stop there. Even within the Han majority, you'll find stark regional differences. If you want to taste this diversity, travel from Sichuan's numbing spicy hot pot to Guangdong's delicate dim sum. Then hop over to Xinjiang for some aromatic lamb skewers. Each region has its own food, language, and tradition. While Mandarin might be the official language, step into different provinces and you'll hear Cantonese, Shanghainese, Hokkien, and other languages. Misconception 2: China is overcrowded. Yes, 1.4 billion people sounds overwhelming, but China's reality might surprise you. Think of China as a continent rather than a country. It's about the same size as the United States, and it has dramatically diverse population patterns. While coastal megacities like Shanghai and Shenzhen grab headlines, vast regions like Tibet, Xinjiang, and Inner Mongolia remain largely untouched. These areas offer breathtaking landscapes where you might drive for hours without seeing another soul. Even in the cities, smart urban planning has created surprisingly livable spaces. Take Shanghai. Despite its massive population, its density is comparable to European capitals or other major global cities. Modern Chinese cities prioritize public parks, efficient transit systems, and thoughtful development that balances urban life with green spaces. Here's something unexpected. Many young professionals are choosing to move to smaller Tier 2 cities like Hangzhou or Sheungdo. The reason is that these cities offer a sweet spot of career opportunities, lower living costs, and a more relaxed lifestyle. Misconception 3: China is backward and heavily polluted. Let's time travel for a moment. If you visited China in the early 2000s, you might have seen gray skies and construction dust everywhere. Fast forward to today, and you're looking at a completely different picture. Remember those iconic photos of Beijing's smog? Well, the city's air quality has improved so dramatically since 2013 that it's becoming a case study in environmental transformation. How did they do it? By becoming a global leader in green technology. Today, China produces more solar panels and wind turbines than any other country, and cities like Shenzhen have transformed their entire public bus fleet to electric vehicles. But that's just the environmental side. Step into any major Chinese city today, and you might think you've walked onto the set of a sci-fi movie. The world's largest high-speed rail network, over 42,000 kilometers of it, connects cities at speeds of up to 350 kilometers per hour. Tech giants are setting global trends, and China's innovation ecosystem is pushing boundaries that many in the West haven't even begun to explore. Misconception 4: Chinese eat strange foods. Let's address the elephant in the room. If you've watched certain media outlets, you might think every Chinese meal involves exotic animals or unusual ingredients. The reality? Most Chinese people eat much like anyone else in the world. A typical Chinese family dinner looks surprisingly familiar: a bowl of rice or noodles, some stir-fried vegetables, and proteins like chicken, pork, or fish. The main difference? The incredible regional variety in how these basics are prepared. What about those controversial foods you might have heard about? The truth is, practices like dog meat consumption are not only extremely rare but are actively being phased out. In fact, in 2020, Shenzhen made history by becoming the first Chinese city to ban dog meat consumption entirely, with many cities following suit. Think about it this way: every culture has foods that others might find unusual. French escargot, American Rocky Mountain oysters, or British black pudding might seem just as exotic to Chinese people as some Chinese delicacies appear to Westerners. In reality, Chinese cuisine is about the masterful use of flavors, textures, and cooking techniques developed over thousands of years. From the delicate sweetness of Shanghainese cuisine to the bold spices of Hunan dishes, China has a culinary tradition based on artistry and balance, not shock value. Misconception 5: Chinese products are low-quality knockoffs. Remember when made in China was synonymous with cheap copies? Well, that chapter of history is firmly closed. Today's China is focusing on innovation, quality, and cutting-edge technology. If you want proof, look at your iPhone. While it says designed in California, it's assembled in China with precision that would impress even the most demanding engineers. Or consider DJI. If you've ever seen a drone video on YouTube, there's a good chance it was shot with their technology. Chinese electric vehicles, think companies like NIO and BYD, are now competing with Tesla in terms of technology and design. Even traditional industries have evolved. Chinese ceramics, textiles, and furniture are now sought after for their quality and craftsmanship. What drove this change? It's simple: China invested heavily in education, particularly in STEM fields. In today's Chinese factories, engineers and designers work together to create tomorrow's products. The focus has shifted from copying to creating, from quantity to quality. Misconception 6: Everyone in China lives under communist uniformity. If you're picturing rows of people in identical clothing living identical lives, it's time for an update. Modern China is more like a technicolor marketplace of lifestyles, careers, and personal choices. Walk through Shanghai's trendy streets, and you might see a tech entrepreneur closing a deal over coffee, a fashion influencer shooting content for her millions of followers, and a traditional calligraphy master teaching students. The rise of China's middle class has created a society where personal expression flourishes. Young Chinese professionals are defining success on their own terms. Some chase high-powered careers in gleaming skyscrapers, while others embrace the lying flat movement, choosing simpler, more balanced lifestyles. Social media platforms like Xiaohongshu, China's answer to Instagram, showcase this diversity perfectly. One scroll through your feed might take you from streetwear fashion in Chengdu to traditional tea ceremonies in Hangzhou. From luxury car reviews to minimalist lifestyle vlogs. Yes, China's system is different from Western democracies, but it's not about enforcing uniformity. The result is a society that's both unified in its goals and remarkably diverse in how people choose to live their lives. Misconception 7: China is totalitarian. Walk through a Chinese city at 11 p.m. and you'll see a vibrant nightlife, families strolling, elderly couples dancing in parks, and street food vendors doing brisk business. The streets are safe, and communities are tight-knit. Chinese police officers typically don't carry firearms, and violent incidents involving law enforcement are extremely rare. Mass shootings are virtually unheard of in China. Police spend their time helping lost tourists, mediating minor disputes, or posing for photos with visitors. China organizes society differently from the West, with its own values and social expectations. Most citizens appreciate the practical benefits: safe streets, efficient services, and economic opportunities. Digital payments and modern infrastructure have made daily life convenient and secure. Misconception 8: Chinese people don't travel or explore the world. If you've visited Berlin, Tokyo, or New York in recent years, you've probably noticed something: Chinese tourists are everywhere. Well, at least they were before the pandemic, and they're rapidly returning to the global tourism scene. Let's put this in perspective. In 2019, Chinese travelers made over 155 million international trips. That's more than the entire population of Russia. And they're not just visiting, they're exploring, learning, and changing the face of global tourism. What's driving this wanderlust? A growing middle class, increasing disposable income, and a genuine curiosity about the world. Young Chinese professionals are studying abroad, learning languages, and building international careers. Chinese travelers are also changing how they explore. Gone are the days of large tour groups rushing through attractions. Today's Chinese tourists are more likely to be independent adventurers, seeking authentic local experiences, such as cooking classes in Thailand or wine tasting in Italy. And here's an interesting twist: domestic tourism in China is equally impressive. From the ice festivals of Ha-Er-Bin to the tropical beaches of Hainan, Chinese travelers are exploring their own country with the same enthusiasm they bring to international destinations. After all, when your country is roughly the size of Europe, there's plenty to discover in your own backyard. Misconception 9. China is isolated from the global community. Think of China as isolated? Time for a reality check. In our multimodal world, China is more like the central hub of a vast network. Let me paint you a picture. Walk into any major Chinese university, and you'll find students from Africa, Latin America, Europe, and beyond, all part of China's growing educational exchange programs. These international students are building bridges between cultures and creating lifelong connections. In the business world, China's global presence is even more striking. From the bustling ports of Shanghai to the tech hubs of Shenzhen, China's economic connections span every continent. Meanwhile, in terms of soft power, Chinese pop culture is having its moment. C-dramas are streaming worldwide, and Chinese social media platforms are shaping global trends. The cultural exchange goes both ways. Ever noticed how many young people worldwide are learning Mandarin nowadays? Misconception 10. China is a threat to global stability. Let's end with perhaps the most serious misconception of all. While headlines often paint China as a looming threat, the reality is more nuanced and, honestly, more interesting. Consider this. China's approach to international relations is deeply rooted in its own experience of development. Rather than military bases, China builds ports and railways. Instead of military alliances, it focuses on economic partnerships. The Belt and Road Initiative, for instance, is about creating infrastructure and trade connections across continents. Look at China's role in global peacekeeping. It's the largest contributor of peacekeeping forces among permanent UN Security Council members. While maintaining order, Chinese peacekeepers are also building hospitals, schools, and infrastructure in developing nations. Recent history shows China's emerging role as a diplomatic mediator. The 2023 Saudi Arabia-Iran agreement brokered by China demonstrates a preference for dialogue over confrontation. It's an approach that prioritizes stability through development and mutual benefit. There you have it. 10 misconceptions about China debunked. The real China is far more complex and fascinating than headlines suggest. Have you encountered other misconceptions about China? Share them in the comments below, and don't forget to check our other videos and subscribe for more free content about China.